This was a lot of math. Welcome back to the class, everyone. Lightspeed bundles have been in the game for about 10 months now, and while they have all been consistently great, as in better than every other pack in the game, they have varied a little bit in value from one to the other. So what I want to do today is take a deep dive into all the packs that have come out thus far, compare them, and see just how much the value has changed. So a few disclaimers before we start on into this, just because there can be a lot of implications that people come in with, and I want to try to have a really clear communication to go off of. So firstly, this is not going to be a character comparison. And what I mean by that is, most of the Lightspeed bundles have been aimed to unlock a certain character, like Beskar Armor Mando, Rey, Starkiller. We're not comparing those characters. What we're trying to do here is compare all of the requirements that you were essentially given after you pay the $10, $20, $30, whatever it is, and look at the value that is being put into those characters from a Chirotech and signal data perspective. We're not comparing the overall legendaries, but what we're doing is comparing the amount of materials that you're being given to go ahead and get them. Next up, this is a overall relative comparison. I know that there's sometimes like to be comments about, it's not worth $20 or $50 to buy pixels. And while that is true, it at the same time, for people who have discretionary income and want to spend things on whatever they want, we're trying to provide somewhat of a helpful tool here to show what they are in regards to each other, not what they are in regards to anything else in life. The third thing is they are not all inclusive. And what I mean by that is we are not going to be factoring in the price of every single gear piece and shard that exists out there. We're trying to really hone in on the ones that matter most, aka Chirotech, signal data, and rarely a get 2 or get 3 purchase like Cam or the Negotiator, just because those have so much value and they can take a long time to farm. This also is going to assume no progress across the board. So when we compare two packs, I'm assuming the person that is buying them has nothing from either pack. I realize that might affect things in all practicality, but it's the best way to do this because I can't just assume what everyone has. And finally, this is not meant to be an LSB bash. And I just say that right now because I made a lot of videos about a lot of the overall value of the Lightspeed bundles. And as I said in the intro, they've all been good. That being said, some of them do really poorly in comparison to other ones, and I don't want to make this look like we're trying to say that they're terrible, because they're not, but in comparison, they might not be good as some of the other ones. So with all of that out of the way, let's actually get to the numbers. I realize that was a lot of disclaimers. So this is a very busy spreadsheet, so we're going to break it down just a little bit. But what we've done here, in essence, is we've tried to group all of the Lightspeed bundles that we've got thus far and just try to show some of the numbers. Again, I'll try to make this as clear as possible. One of the two things that we tried to hone in on are, if you were to have gotten the pack, again, these are not really all available right now. In fact, only 2 of them are. But if you were to have gotten these packs when they came out, you would have gotten a certain amount of Chirotech and signal data immediately applied to a group of characters. And that's really the value we're going off of. We are totaling up all the characters that you got for the BB-8 pack, how many Chirotech it would have cost you to do that, and then how much that Chirotech would have cost to purchase through shipments. That's the most even way and conservative way to do this overall. I realize there are sometimes better methods to get Chirotech, but those are typically from limited type packs, and I don't want to compare it to something limited when we really need to be comparing to something that is always available. So we eventually translate that into dollars, assuming you're buying the Crystal Vaults, again, trying to be as conservative as possible there. And then again, doing the same exact thing with signal data. I realize we're not doing this with Gear 12. There have been a few people here and there who have said we really should be factoring that into our calculation. And while I realize for a lot of players that is a fair statement because Gear 12 is really necessary for them, I will say though, for a comparison perspective, we really don't need to include Gear 12 because when we're comparing one pack to the other, they proportionally should have the same exact amount of Gear 12 because every single character that comes in a Lightspeed bundle is over relics, so they've already passed that. So if one pack is 50% better than the other one, factoring in the Gear 12 doesn't really change that because it's added in on both sides. So the way that we have this also structured is we've grouped all the packs in order of when they came out. You'll see that the first 5 packs we have down the line was from the first batch in October. The next 4 was from the one in December. The next group was the one from earlier this year. And the last 2 are going to be from the summer. And what we're going to do is look at what these packs brought in value, how much they cost, what was the overall value between those two numbers, and then grouping them to find averages to really see, have these packs gotten worse? Are they going to continue to be worse? And what that actually looks like on an average basis. So pulling out the rest of our tabs here now that we hopefully have a better understanding of what the spreadsheet is trying to do, you can see that we have now included the overall totals for each one of the packs, and we've done a little bit of math. So taking the BB-8 pack, for example, it gave you about $400 worth of value when we take into effect all of the Chirotech as well as the signal data, and the pack only cost $10, meaning that the bundle was 40 times better than trying to buy those signal data as well as Chirotech in the shipments, which is quite frankly ridiculously good. There are good packs out there, but a lot of the time they will give you twice or 3 times the amount of value. For the Lightspeed bundle to already give 40 times better right off the bat was quite frankly ridiculous, but in a very good way, and kind of gave a nice catch-up mechanic for a lot of players. You will see that this trend kind of continues down, not identical. 40 was very good, but even for the JTR pack, it was 15 times better. The Radis pack was 18 times better. The Ray pack was 33 times better. So ultimately, you probably, if you were wanting to get Ray as a whole, you probably weren't spending 10 or 20 bucks. You were more likely spending something like 40 or even 50 up there top with the BB-8 pack. Overall, still was a really good deal because of the amount of characters that you were getting and a total. And when we queue all of these packs together, we get an overall average rate of 22 times better than if you were to get those packs elsewhere. Now, the reason why this number is so low in comparison to these other 4 numbers is because we're grouping in the Star Killer pack. The Star Killer pack, while it did give you 4 characters that were all really heavy in Chirotech, and that did produce a lot of stuff, it was also only 4 characters, and the pack was really expensive. It's the most expensive, or tied for the most expensive, Lightspeed bundle pack that we have gotten thus far, and it really brings down the overall average for when they first came out and what their overall value was. So while it is definitely a true statement that Ray gave you a ton of bang for your buck, the overall outcome of the first set actually wasn't the best overall average. That is actually going to be up to the next one, which came out in December, where we saw the SLKR pack, which, by the way, I think is the best one we've had to date at 43 times better, and we'll go into more of that here in a second. We also got the Finalizer pack, as well as the Palpin Thrawn, and finally the Mando pack. When we add up all 4 of these averages for how much value you got, or how much more value you got, it ended up being 24 times better, so not a huge leap from 22 times, but still really good. One of the reasons why the SLKR bundle was just so ridiculously good is because I believe it gave you 11 characters in total, one of which was a Chirotech character, all the way up to Relic 5. Really simple math here. 11 characters, $10. You were paying, if you got this pack, you were paying less than $1 for a Relic 5 character. Even for Lightspeed bundles, that is ridiculously good. I don't know if we'll ever see better than that. I think at best we see on par with that, especially with how things will go. If Jedi Master Luke were to be the next Lightspeed bundle, that's not like insider information, that is a guess. It would probably even be a lot higher than that because of how they will split his characters up between all the legendaries that are required for him. But at any rate, still probably the best pack to date with no real exceptions or considerations when it comes to looking at it. You will see on the very far right hand side here, we did put in a few nuances when it comes to buying, or when it came to buying some of these packs and how it might overall change things. You saw that we only put 16 times better and 18 times better for the Radis and the Finalizer packs, but that was not including ship shards at all. And since you can farm them fairly easily, I didn't think to actually factor that into the calculation because I also didn't have a piece to cross with unless I was just doing crystals for ship shards, which seems kind of steep and would really inflate the overall value, despite the fact that we did do that with Negotiator because Get To is a lot more valuable than, say, Fleet Energy. But overall, that's kind of where those stand. Now, where we did see a significant, it's half, where we did see a significant drop in the overall Lightspeed bundles was with the ones that dropped in April of this year, being the General Skywalker, the Padme, the Night Sister, the Geo, the 3PO, and yeah, actually ending there. And while the General Skywalker bundle was amazing because the amount of characters that it gave you overall, and the fact that it gave you Negotiator completely ready to go, it did, very similar to Starkiller, cost $50. So it ended up still being the best pack from that time period because of all that stuff. It still didn't quite stack up to say the SLKR pack, because you were getting a roughly similar amount of characters just for a much higher premium. Now you will notice, and I should have said this probably earlier, but both General Skywalker and Ki-Adi-Mundi's Kyrotech is extremely inflated. General Skywalker did not require 30 characters to gear up. That being said, what I did want to do in regards to Negotiator is, if you didn't have Negotiator farmed at all, you hadn't gotten a single shard using the Get To currency, what I did here was I made a cost-benefit analysis for if you were to take all of that Get To that you were going to use on Negotiator and spend it on Kyrotech and factor it in here. So this 1300 Kyrotech you see that makes up this part of the 2900, that actually represents the cost for Negotiator, which again, very expensive ship. That doesn't even factor the time it would take to be able to do that, but at the same time, it does translate pretty well into how the rest of this works. Ki-Adi-Mundi also had a very inflated Kyrotech. He himself obviously does not require 2800, but again, if you never spent a single ounce of your Get 3 on his shards, you would be able to take that Get 3, the same amount, and eventually put it towards Kyrotechs using the same currency, producing this amount of overall value with the Kyrotech. So again, going back here now to the April, we do see quite a bit of a dip, and I think, and this is going to sound maybe a little bit bad on my part, but it seems like CG got a little bit smarter with things, where they realized that they didn't necessarily need to give 40 times value over. They could settle for something a little bit more average, like just 10 times better, you know, nothing much, just 10 times. But the main way that I've seen that they did this was they started drawing back the relic levels. For the Geo pack, I believe the Night Sister, the Padme pack they did not, but the General Skywalker pack they did, they started to really draw back on the relic levels. For the Geo, Night Sister, and General Skywalker, they went all the way back to Relic 3. And while Relic 3 to Relic 5 might not seem like that big of a deal to you, it's actually huge, because once you start to span it across the amount of characters that come in each pack, the signal data adds up really quickly. When we compare the overall signal data value between the Padme and the General Skywalker pack, Padme destroys the General Skywalker pack at over twice the amount of value because of the amount of signal data that start to get charged at that Relic 4 and at that Relic 5 price point. Not to say the pack was better, it was actually worse because of Negotiator and things like that, but it was still made it compete at a higher level. So overall, I think that CG is kind of learning how high they need to go, how many characters they need to include, and really overall what value they're trying to go for. Awkwardly enough, the 2 Jedi packs that came out this summer had an overall average of 17 times better than normal, so quite above, but there really are some nuances to that. I mean, the Ki-Adi-Mundi shards doing the Get 3 conversion for Kyrotech that we did, that's not going to necessarily apply to everyone. There are some people where they're not buying Kyrotech and with crystals a lot, so that really kind of cuts them out of the process entirely. And then you also have the overall aspect of the fact that the Jedi, and this is not the only pack that does this, by the way, but the Jedi pack that came out right now doesn't carry as much value because some people are just going to completely exclude a character like Eth Koth that doesn't actually bring anything to the table anywhere. Sorry, Gladiator. That being said, that is not unique to that Jedi pack. If we actually go back to the Palpatine Thrawn pack as well up here, where it gave you all those characters, nobody really needed Farm Boy Luke at Relic 3. So this is all encompassing. We are taking into account every single character, but there are some nuances deeper than this where the true, it went from an overall 22 times better to 10 times better isn't exactly accurate, but it's as close as we can get without being able to factor in those nuances in a monetary sense. So that is going to be the end of today's video. I guess if we wanted to summarize this massive amount of math and conversion stuff in here, is that it does seem like the Lightspeed bundles are scaling back quite a bit, but they're still providing on average 10 times better than you could get through any other shipment. So if you have discretionary funds and you love the game and you want the characters to come in them, have at it. And I do think we have a bright future ahead with them, or at least a more stable future ahead with them. If I had to guess, we'll probably get a JML pack sometime in the next year, but with the amount of legendaries that are required to get him, it'll probably be 10 or 12 or 10 different packs at 10 or 20 bucks each, which will end up being something more like 10 times better rather than 40 like the Rey and SLKR ones were. But that is going to be it for today. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think. And as always, stay awesome.